When did humans start fighting over land? There is a graveyard in Sudan, on a hill above the Nile, that is around 13,000 years old. Inside it are dozens of skeletons, men, women, and children, and buried in their bones, literally lodged inside the skeletons, are stone arrowheads and spear points. Some of these people were shot, some were stabbed. Some show healed wounds, meaning they survived one attack only to die in the next. This is one of the oldest pieces of evidence we have for organized human violence, and it tells a very uncomfortable story. We like to imagine our distant ancestors as peaceful, gentle hunter-gatherers, wandering the land, sharing food, living in harmony with nature and each other. And a lot of the time, sure, that was true, but the bones tell us something else too. Long before kings, before armies, before borders on a map, humans were already killing each other. Over what? Over the one thing that has started almost every war in history: land. So let's go back, before the first soldier, before the first castle, before the first empire, and figure out the real question. When did humans start fighting over territory? And honestly, the answer is older and darker than you'd think. First, let's kill the myth. The idea of the noble savage, the peaceful prehistoric human who never fought, is mostly a fantasy we invented because it makes us feel better. The truth is, for most of human history, your single greatest threat was not a lion, not a bear, not the cold. It was the group of humans living on the other side of the hill. But to understand why, you have to understand how our ancestors actually lived. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in small bands, usually 20 to 50 people. Everyone knew everyone. You were related to most of them, and that little group was your entire universe. Now here's the key thing. Each of these bands needed land, not for fun, for survival. A band needed a territory with water, with animals to hunt, with plants to gather, with safe places to sleep. That patch of land was the difference between your children eating and your children starving. And land, unfortunately, is limited. So picture it. Your band has a valley. Good water, plenty of deer, berries in the summer. Life is hard but survivable. And then one season, another band shows up at the edge of your valley. Maybe their own land dried up. Maybe their hunting failed. Maybe there are just too many of them now. They are hungry. They are desperate. And they are looking at your deer, your water, your valley. There is no police to call, no court, no border guard. There is just you, them, and a very simple question. Who gets to eat? This is where it begins. Not with grand armies, but with two small groups of frightened, hungry people standing on opposite sides of a river, realizing there isn't enough for both of them. Now, for a long time, scientists argued that real warfare only started with farming. The logic made sense. Once humans settled down around 12,000 years ago and started growing crops, suddenly you had things worth fighting over. Stored grain, permanent homes, fields you'd spent months working. You couldn't just walk away from that. You had to defend it, so you got walls and weapons and war, and there's truth to that. Farming absolutely turbocharged violence, but that graveyard in Sudan, that site called Jebel Sahaba, is older than farming. Those people were still hunter-gatherers, and they were clearly, repeatedly attacked. Which means the comfortable theory that we were peaceful until farming corrupted us has a 13,000-year-old hole shot straight through it. It gets worse. In Kenya, at a place called Nataruk, archaeologists found the remains of a group of hunter-gatherers from around 10,000 years ago. And this wasn't a quiet death. The skeletons told a story of a massacre, crushed skulls, a man with a stone blade still embedded in his head, broken hands possibly from being bound, a pregnant woman among the dead, an entire small community attacked and wiped out by another group of humans thousands of years before anyone planted a single seed. These people owned no grain. They had no walls to defend. So why were they slaughtered? The most likely answer is the oldest one. Someone else wanted what they had, their spot by the water, their hunting ground, their territory. So why does this happen? Why are we, supposedly the smart, social, cooperative species, so quick to kill each other over a patch of dirt? And the uncomfortable answer is hiding in your own brain. It's something psychologists call in-group and out-group. Here is the deal. Humans evolved to live in those small, tight bands. And to survive, your brain developed a very powerful instinct. The people in your group are family. They are us. You will share food with them, protect them, even die for them. But the people outside your group, They are them, and your brain treats them very, very differently. For most of history, this instinct was life-saving. Trusting your own band kept you alive. Being suspicious of the strange band over the hill who might raid you also kept you alive. The humans who hugged every stranger they met tended to get robbed and killed. The humans who were a little wary, a little tribal, survived and had kids, so that wiring got passed down. To us, this is the dark engine underneath the whole story. We didn't fight over land because we were evil. We fought because every band that didn't defend its territory simply died out, and every band that did defend it passed on its genes and its instincts, including the instinct to see outsiders as a threat. In other words, the ancestors who survived to become us were, by necessity, the ones willing to fight. Now, it wasn't always full-blown war. Most of the time, ancient humans were actually pretty clever about avoiding a fight because a fight is incredibly risky. In a band of 30 people, losing even 2 or 3 young hunters is a catastrophe. You can't afford a war the way a nation can. So humans invented something brilliant. The border. Different bands worked out invisible lines. This valley is ours. That ridge is yours. The river in between is neutral. They'd mark territory with signs everyone understood. Paintings on rock, piles of stones, carvings on trees. A way of saying, without a word, you are now leaving our land. Some of the oldest rock art in the world may be exactly this. Not just pretty pictures, but ancient keep out signs. And when bands did meet, they often chose trade over bloodshed. They swapped tools, food, even people, marrying members between groups to turn a dangerous neighbor into family, because the one guaranteed way to stop another band from attacking you is to make their children your grandchildren. It's the oldest peace treaty there is. We've been sealing alliances through marriage since long before anyone wrote the word alliance. But trade and marriage only work when there's enough to go around. The moment things get desperate, a drought, a hard winter, a failed hunt, the borders stop mattering. When your kids are starving, that's their land becomes a much quieter thought than my children need to eat, and that's when the spears come out. Then, around 12,000 years ago, everything changed forever. Humans started farming, and farming didn't just feed us. It rewrote the entire game of human conflict. Think about what farming creates. Suddenly, you don't just pass through the land. You own it. You clear it. You plant it. You pour months of work into it, and you cannot leave. A hunter-gatherer can walk away from danger. A farmer is chained to their field. If raiders come, you either fight or you lose everything. Farming also created something humans had never really had before: surplus. Stored food, grain in a pot, animals in a pen, wealth. And for the first time in history, you could steal a year's worth of someone's survival in a single afternoon. So people built walls. One of the oldest known walls on Earth surrounds the ancient town of Jericho, built around 11,000 years ago. Think about what a wall means. You don't build a giant wall to keep out lions, you build it to keep out people. That wall is a confession, written in stone, that other humans had become the main thing to fear. And from there, it all snowballs. More food means more people. More people means bigger groups. Bigger groups need more land, which bumps them into other groups who also need more land. Small raids grow into organized battles. Battles grow into the first armies. Leaders rise who are good at war. And eventually you get kingdoms, empires, and the endless human habit of drawing a line on the ground and saying, everything on this side is mine. But the seed of all of it, every war, every border dispute, every empire, traces back to that simple, brutal moment on the frozen plain. 2 hungry groups of people, 1 patch of good land, and not enough for both. So when did humans start fighting over land? The truth is, probably as far back as there were humans to do it. Long before farms, before walls, before history was ever written down, our ancestors were already standing on opposite sides of a river, gripping their spears, doing the same grim math we've been doing ever since, because the weapons changed. The arrowheads became swords, became guns, became things far worse. The valleys became countries. The bands became nations, but the argument underneath has never ever changed. It's still just 2 groups of people looking at the same piece of ground, both absolutely certain that it belongs to them. We've been having that exact fight for 13,000 years. And if we're honest with ourselves, we still haven't figured out how to stop.